just seen the little bit at the bottom says, consider joking the channel. I really do need to proofread things before I click go. Hi, guys, and welcome to Sidetrack and the Machine.
Hello,
hello. I'll explain quickly what we're doing today, because we are on Sidetrack channel, and we're on the Machine, and we're on the Twitch account today, because we are talking about Fire in the Sky, the Travis Walton UFO incident. Walton. The Waltons. Was this related to the Waltons? I never really watched it.
No.
Oh, okay.
Not just at all.
A little bit. So, obviously, there was the movie Fire in the Sky. So today we're going to basically ask the question, was that movie based on a real event, or is it just a nice bit of sci-fi? Because actually it did get nominated for 5 Saturn Awards when it came out, Fire in the Sky. It did quite well as a movie. It starred D.B. Sweeney, whose career never really took off because he's got a weird face. And somebody you might have heard of called Robert Patrick. He's done quite well. Henry Thomas was in it from E.T. fame. And the legend James Garner was in this movie. So this was not a little tin pot movie. This was a proper film when it was released. So here is a little clip from the advert before I make an admission about this thing, considering I'm a UFO person. Here we go.
The story that Travis Walton and 5 other witnesses told was so unbelievable, so unimaginable, that it has become the most famous case of UFO abduction ever reported.
There you go. That was the advert from the film. Love that movie. Everyone's in with us today. Hey, Andrew. Hey, Shelley. Let's get into it, though. Right. So my admission, quickly. I am a bit of a UFO guy. We have this to the channel. We talk on the Machine. We talk about UFOs and supernatural things and whatever hell we want to talk about. Please go over to the Machine and subscribe if you're watching this through Sidetrack or Twitch. There's a link in the description. There's also a link to Stormy's channel if you want to go see more of him. And if you want to see more of that as well. Let me just adjust my camera because I can see what it's set on. So, I don't know anything about this story. I watched this movie when it came out, probably about 28 years ago, and I can't really remember it. So, today, Stormy and Davey have graciously accepted the responsibility of explaining the story to me, reminding me, and then we will figure out, is this sci-fi like Star Trek, Star Wars, just a load of made up story, or is it actually based on a true story? Guys, Dave, I think you're going to start, and then because Stormy said he's just going to jump in and make stuff up as he goes along. So,
well, that's the best way of doing things, really, isn't it? Making it up.
Because I'm American.
Yes. Maybe is it par for the course? Because is this story made up? Well, I suppose there's only one way to find out, really, isn't there? Is to
hold it in, man. Jay, hold it in. Swallow, man.
Nearly choked to death.
You love it, really.
Christ, it's the way
sorry, Dave.
I'm American.
No,
that's the aluminium. Sorry, go on, Davey.
No, it's good. I was enjoying that more than
us. That was Stormy. This is Dave.
I was enjoying that more than the actual story of the film, really. But so Travis Walton was a logger. He was 22 years old at the time, and on November the 5th, 1975, he was logging with five teammates in or near Snowflake in Arizona, in Apache Sitgreaves or Apache something National Park. You have to excuse me for that particular bit. And they were driving back after finishing late at night. It was dark, and they noticed a glow, what appeared to be a golden glow in the sky above the trees, to the extent where they even sort of like remarked, like it looked like there was a fire, and we can see the reflection of the fire within the sky. And they reached a clearing. They came across a clearing as they were driving away, They thought that with the glow that was illuminating a big part of the forest was mind-blowing on its own. But when they reached this clearing, they noticed that there appeared to be an object within the golden glow that they obviously pulled up, and it looked like it looked like a disc. So the truck stopped. Travis Walton got out, and he started to approach it, and it was making a high-pitched buzzing noise. His friends or co-workers in the truck told him to, don't go there, Travis, stop. He got relatively close, apparently, just a few feet away from this object, which then intensified in the pitch of the buzzing noise that it was making. He took cover behind a log. I'll stop in a sec, and then we'll take it up again in a minute, but just to have a bit of interaction with you guys. He took cover behind a log. It's described as being like a beam of energy, or almost described as a bolt of lightning, hit Travis Walton while he was behind this log, and the rest of the team panicked. I'll carry on with it in a minute, but what do you think so far?
I'm wondering what his mates were like yelling at him from the truck. Dumbass! Get in the truck! He's walking up to him going, "Hello, I'm an American."
You're another Stormy treatment.
Yeah. There's in these stories, there's always one idiot that gets out of the truck in there.
There's always an idiot that gets out of the truck. I'm wondering if like trucks are idiot bait. Sometimes I'm sitting in traffic and I look around, I'm surrounded by trucks, and I'm thinking, I see a trend here.
So some of those, I remember being in America, and I was driving an RV, and it was a bit big, and we accidentally drove into Los Angeles. Nearly, my heart, play this, and I just remember we came this close to hitting a truck, a beautiful F-150 or something. But I just remember in the back window there was just a rifle. We were in a city, a rifle across the back window, and I was just like, we came that close, and we're just like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "I don't know, I'm in a city and I'm driving under this 36-foot long." But yeah, it was a nightmare. But anyway.
Yeah, so that's the gist of how the whole thing started. These guys had this lumber contract up in the woods, and I think it was Apache Sitgreaves National Forest. Yeah. And Travis saw something shiny in the woods and just went for it, And and that's kind of how the movie goes. I mean, that's the story about Travis is missing, he's gone, he's been beamed up, and then here's all these lumberjacks in Arizona trying to tell the story to the sheriff, and the sheriff's kind of, you got to think he's skeptical, and the film shows he's skeptical. And I think in the film there's like some discussion of family schisms and so forth. But yeah, that's kind of how that first act of the film went.
So he's supposed to have been beamed up to the ship. Do the witnesses actually see him sort of get taken up?
No.
He's get hit by the light. So he's hit by the light, and then he's just gone.
They see him get hit. They see him get struck. They get out of there. They drive away. Turn a bend, and they bravely run away. Yeah, they absolutely. They're out of there. They stop and I'll go through what Travis reports seeing when he wakes up in a second. But yeah, basically they got out of there. They screeched to a halt when they were safely out of the way. They had a little bit of a conflab about what they should do and what was right. Had a bit of an argument, and then decided to go back and retrieve said Travis. Of course, when they got back to the clearing where Travis had his beam of light experiment, if you like, he was there no longer. He disappeared, Jay. He wasn't to be found.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay. So back in the town, then the sheriff thought it was not true, possibly.
Well, they haven't got there yet, but yes.
Okay. Go on then. So what happens when they're heading back then?
Well, there's massive arguments about how they're going to explain it to the sheriff. If you believe what we're told, but of course I don't jump too far ahead to theories what people have put forward as to why they took their time getting back, because they didn't report it for 2 hours.
Okay.
they didn't immediately report it. Now, you would sort of like to think that if somebody or you saw somebody get struck by a UFO or anything for that matter, and you was concerned to it. And I remember that they were two family friends. The Rogers were family friends of Travis Walton. They weren't just workmates. They were family friends. And you would like to think that they would be concerned enough to raise the alarm that something had happened to their co-worker and friend. But they waited a couple of hours. They've been called. They've been, it has been mentioned and they've been doubted because of that. But, we'll come to that a little bit later on. But the story obviously carries on then because now Travis is on board, if you like, whatever it is that he reports. And he wakes up in pain on a table. This is what is reported to say. What I'm saying is what I'm going through here, by the way, everybody, is what Travis Walton has said has happened. Okay, there is other events within the film that don't necessarily correspond to what Travis Walton said happened. But there you go. He woke up in pain on a table in a hospital kind of room, and there were three small bald creatures with really large eyes that were looking at him. And he freaked out. He panicked. He didn't know because he was in pain or because he didn't know where he was. He became panicky, and he jumped up and tried to escape. And one of the creatures came towards him apparently to stop him from getting out of the room, and he pushed that away very, very easily. He said it was very, very easy to push away. He manhandled that creature out of the way, and he picked up a beaker, like a cylinder, a glass beaker, or what you presume will be a glass cylinder, from a shelf behind him and started to wave it around. And they retreated. These small bald creatures retreated, and then a taller one came in that was wearing like a fishbowl kind of helmet, which was more human looking, which calmed him down. This creature then took him into another room, which he said it actually had a completely different structure from what the craft was, where there was another metallic table, and more of these creatures were these human type creatures, and one of them was a female. They were all wearing masks, plastic, all masks with tubes in. And the female humanoid creature approached him while he was laying on this metallic table and put the mask on him, and then he drifted into unconsciousness. The next thing he remembers is waking up 5 days and 6 hours later or something near Heber in Arizona, in the woods right at the side of the main road. And he looked up and he saw the saucer disappear. He looked up just to see it disappear from view. He then walked to a call box and phoned his sister. So, take it away, guys.
Was there any injuries or anything like that sustained, or anything? Any injuries, or did he have a medical examination when he returned?
He had a red mark on his arm, which he posited the theory that it must have been where there was some kind of intravenous tube given to him. Where he was being fed nutrients while he was there for the 5 days, because he was only he sort of made claims that he was only awake for actually just a few hours during the entire 5.5 day time that he was missing. The rest of it, he was completely unconscious or out of it.
The thing I just want to address the 2 hour issue. From where they were at in terms of like air miles from Snowflake, they were about 70 miles. Air miles. Now, here in the American West, if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you're away from a paved road, the area, the whole region is crisscrossed with old wagon trails and logging trails, and getting up and down those is really time consuming. Like yesterday, we were up in the Sierra Mountains, just driving around, and it took about an hour to go 15 miles. And that was on a paved road. It's just so twisty and turny that you really can't get up any speed. And so if they were 70 miles away and they rolled into town, 2 hours later, well, that would probably be accurate if they left right. I mean, these, and then if you get off road, well, it is slow going. It's very slow going.
And obviously we're talking, when did this happen? Sorry, 73?
75. Yeah.
So, I mean, it was, they weren't phoning anybody on the mobiles, were they? But they would have had CB, though, probably. Would there be lumberjacks up in the woods? I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I don't
I
think.
can imagine though there was a conversation. As in, should we tell him he was just eaten by a bear? I'm thinking eaten by a bear might work, right? Or we had an argument, you just ran off drunk. Let's not go with what actually happened here, people, because I can imagine they're going to think we're doolally, to say the least.
Well, if they were frightened, let's take them at their word. I mean, they passed a bunch of polygraphs. If they were frightened, I mean, that kind of panic of seeing your buddy blasted by this thing in the air that you're pretty sure is not Jesus. I mean, it's got to put
they'd have thought it was Jesus.
A lot of fear into them. No one denied that they weren't racing down the mountain trying to get out of the woods and back to town. I mean, then, they probably had to stop someplace, like you said, Dave. They had to, try to get their story straight. And not just get their story straight, is like, do they tell the truth or not?
That's very true. I mean, Ian makes a good point here that this did happen before sci-fi was big. But, I mean, after the Earth stood still and things like that. So, UFO flap was in the 50s, wasn't it? So, I mean, this was in the culture, wasn't it? These flying saucers. Abductions, though? How many abductions had been reported before this?
One of the biggest ones in history, Betty and Barney Hill.
Betty and Barney Hill.
Yep.
Which this story, you could argue, is actually quite similar.
And I do have to say, I was going to wait until later on to say this, but there was an NBC special that was aired 2 weeks before Travis Walton's case, where it was a 2-hour special that was about the Betty and Barney Hill abduction. Travis Walton admitted to having seen that. Travis Walton was also a massive UFO and flying saucer geek, and all his friends knew about that. He was massively into the flying saucer scene. This wasn't new to him in any way, shape, or form. It has so many similarities with that case. The way that some of the so-called entities look, the way that they're dressed in overalls, the small ones in reddish brown uniforms, the tall one in dark blue ones that look more humanoid, the ones that are more calm and human looking. There's so many similarities and crossovers between the two, and just 2 weeks. On top of which, the Forestry Commission hounding Mike Rogers to complete his contract, for which he was getting fined per acre of woodland that he was not deforesting, and withholding 10% of the money. He still owed the crew wages that he wasn't able to pay. And when did the contract run out? On the 20th. When did Travis reappear? On the 21st. So there's also the theory it's a case of holiday. I can't go back. You're gonna have to cancel the contract. I can't go back into the woods because there's UFOs there. I'm scared. Please cancel the contract because I can't complete the work because it's dangerous. And that is what happened, by the way. 14 days after that, the Forestry Commission did cancel the contract, and he did get his money that he was owed. So some people suspect that that's what went on. There's also other things that Travis Walton can be called into conjecture regarding his honesty. He was done in 1971 for fraud, fraudulent checks. He was also done for burglary with, I think was it George Rogers? And George Rogers is the brother of Mike Rogers, who was the team leader of that group on the night. So he's got a criminal record. They were offered the chance to reimburse or, give the money back. They did. So then they could plead not guilty, so that their criminal records could be expunged. But you've still got to doubt the veracity of his claims because he's a proven,
fraudster.
Yeah,
that was at least one thing that did make it into the movie. Is like the people involved, there was a schism between it. They didn't come out and talk about the fraud specifically, but everybody was kind of on edge, and no one was anybody's real friend. But that kind of. Everybody beating up on each other and the issue about money and not getting paid. Why in the world would they come up with such an outlandish story and stick to it? You'd think that once they got paid, they're like, well, yeah, that's a bunch of bullshit. Especially when Travis pops back up naked in the field or wherever. So why continue? I mean, the rest of them didn't really publish books or,
They're famous off it, sort of.
Yeah, they just kind of like, well, let's go chop down some more trees because I got bills to pay. It just seems with if they're all chums, I mean, three of us, I'm pretty sure, could come up with some pretty outlandish stories and stick to it. But we kind of like each other, but these guys were not chums. They weren't best friends, as far as we know.
That's true, though, that they. So would we say that? So is there more? Was there any physical evidence other than a red mark on his arm to support his story?
Well, okay. This is one of the things I was planning to go out there up to the clearing where the alleged abduction took place, because there's some anomalies in the trees that were in the area, and I was going to measure those, but then COVID. But as I understand it, there's some anomalous growth in the trees, and I was going to do like tree ring samples, but.
When they
we will see you later, mate. Thank you so much for getting up at 3 a.m.
See you later, Andrew.
Andrew, go to bed. Lord, you can watch it later.
When they arranged the search parties to look for Travis when they realised he was missing, of course, the first place they went to was the place where he was last saw, which was the clearing. Which was the clearing. There was no signs of anything because, of course, they've gone there and gone, look, we've got nothing to do with him. He was taken by a spaceship inside a glowing light. So the first thing they looked for there was, well, where's the spaceship? It's no longer here. Is there any burn marks on the ground? Because there've been UFO. You've got Michalak with the burns on his body from the 1950s, the McConville cases. There's plenty of UFO sightings leading up to 1975. Many, in fact. And so, it's like, well, if you're going to make outlandish claims like that, boy, we're going to check the land, you know what I mean? And they got there and they had a look around. And at that time, they didn't find anything whatsoever. The search spread. And then eventually petered out after a couple of days, pretty much because his family weren't that bothered about finding him. They sort of like said, in fact, I did
sounds like
write
the
down.
black sheep anyway. I'm not sure I'd be bothered about finding him.
That is a fair comment. His mum said, I have got it somewhere, if you bear with me one sec. The actual statement his mum said, where was it? It was interesting to say the least. I can't find it, but something along the lines of I don't know why we're bothering because we're not going to find him. And his brother made a statement of something like, "Oh, it's okay because UFOs always return victims to the place they were last found."
So was he found near where he was lost?
But just a few miles away, yeah.
Just within a couple of miles. And then obviously that would have been...
It was on the highway, right? He was down near the highway, yeah. So that's...
Yeah. I would have been interested to know what the other 4 or 5 people were up to during that time. If this is just a Swiss, right? They could have said he's there. This is where it happened. He could have been in a tent 20 miles away. Couldn't he?
Yeah. Well, I will say this: the rest of them. Sorry, Jay, brother. The rest of them, when they went back to town, were not held for that full time inside a saloon bar by paranoid sheriffs and the law enforcement. They weren't kept there for the full 5.5, 6 days while Travis was away. Like can sometimes come across in the way that the films portrayed and the way that documentaries are made out. They were under suspicion, yes. They were heavily questioned, yes. But, they pretty much kept a low profile. And there is reports as well that one of them was approached by the FBI and offered $10,000 to keep his mouth shut. But that's what Travis said. So whether that actually happened or not.
I'd like that instead backed up by the actual person. From what I'm aware of since the event, and we'll go back, but Travis Walton has done a lot of interviews and things. I think he's even appeared on Joe Rogan, hasn't
he? Yeah.
But the others haven't particularly. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, Travis is the only one that's really talking about it, and the rest is just like, oh, God, Jesus, I've got other things to do.
Leave us alone.
But they still don't say it's BS.
Yeah, they've not come out, because that's the one thing. If these guys are genuinely not in on it together, they've not wanted to get involved since, then why are they saying it's true? So I kind of think of two possibilities there. Either they were in on it, they're better mates than they think, and they lied, so they feel like they can't tell the truth, or this was some sort of hoax, as in he got out the truck, there was something rigged. Travis Walton managed to rig something so it looked like, at least one of them must have been in on it for that to work, though. And then everyone's like, we know psychology, don't we? One person starts going, oh my god, everybody else starts panicking, and you tear out. Other than that, the only other possibility is obviously that it's true that I can think of, and he was actually kidnapped by aliens. What do you guys think? So what do you think the actual possibilities are of what it could have been if it's not aliens then?
Shrooms, man.
That was straight in for the kill very early on there, Jay.
Yeah, but I'm trying to get it around my head around it, to be honest.
There has been tell that hunters and fishermen on the night in question, 5th of November in 1975, also reported seeing what appeared to be an amber or golden glow in the sky. Those kind of things have sort of been profligated throughout media by people in more modern times rather than at the time. And none of them claims have been substantiated that I'm aware of. And if they have been substantiated, please, type it in the side chat or type it under the video when it goes out. But as far as I'm aware, they haven't been actually substantiated that other people did do it. But there are rumours that fishermen and hunters saw the golden glow. So if they did see the golden glow, that makes that part of the story true. And if that part of the story is true, where there's a golden glow causing the fire in the sky, if you like, then why would the golden glow being responsible for Travis also not be true? Why elaborate upon that? Could they have seen the golden glow and it was something meteorological, perhaps, that they weren't aware of, and then added the story to that fact, thinking other people will see this golden glow as well, so this is a perfect opportunity for us to make up a UFO story. Seems a little bit far-fetched, but I think it's a hoax personally. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, no, but if he was hoaxing it, do you think the other guys were in on it then?
Yes.
So this was, and now they can't tell the truth because they've lied. I think one of them would come out and go, this was bullshit.
Well, Mike Rogers is not even willing to talk about it. Now, I've been involved in, when I've had experiences of seeing things that I can't explain, whether it's on investigations regarding the paranormal, and even just in everyday life, where a certain event has happened and somebody's been with me and noticed it, and not only will they completely deny outright that it's happened, they won't even be willing to speak about it. It's like, no, I don't even want to confront the issue, whether it's positive or negatively biased towards what actually happened or not. They just don't want to speak about it because it's going to have caused some kind of trauma to them, because whichever way you look at it, they still did have to answer questions for 5 days and undergo a polygraph. Not going to get into polygraphs. Well, we will a little bit, but polygraphs, chocolate fire guards. The when you do them, when you arrange a polygraph, the thing is the examinees are present when it comes to formulating the questions. Okay, so there's like an interview or an assessment at the beginning, where obviously you will get like some kind of establish what will be a positive answer by asking questions that you already know the answer to, and this carries on throughout any kind of investigation. You will I know where this person lives, but I will ask where this person lives, because when I get a response, I get a baseline. That baseline can be positive or negative, but I'm using this baseline as a positive. They answered correctly. Yourself, polygraph tests, they measure respiration, heart rate, and perspiration.
Response. Yep.
So they measure physiological changes to psychological conditioning or psychological questioning, and the anxiety of just going through heavy questions can raise anxiety, whether it's positive or negative, and cause physiological changes anyway, and isn't truly an indication of deception per se. That's why they're not admissible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, they're completely unadmissible in this country in particular. I think some states in America do allow them, don't they, as evidence in certain circumstances.
Yes.
But even in the US, where they allow, I mean, psychics can probably go to court and give evidence in it in some parts of America, though. So let's be honest. American. That's your word, Stormy, not mine. So,
is it not true, though?
Well, yeah, I think the legal system is a little looser than ours, anyway. But ours is still very. We still wear wigs from the 1850s and things.
17.
It is a 1700, yeah.
Yeah, probably. I nearly said 1950s. I don't know where that was going with that.
Remember, British history is American history up until 1776, and then you guys drop off the face.
And beyond, mister. And beyond. Don't just believe the lie about the tea bags being thrown into the Hudson River. It goes beyond that. You've still got our judicial system pretty much in our educational. We stole it from the Romans. So,
the Hudson River and the Boston Harbor is completely different places.
Cool. You forgive me for knowing an erroneous little bit of American history. I'm surprised any Americans know anything about British history. Let's have it right.
Well, like I said, it's taught in schools up until 1776. That was the common history. I believe that. But after that, man, it's all Paul Revere and
real history. The real stuff.
So I always love that story about when the Americans were building Disneyland, or when Disney was building Disneyland, and they came over to build Euro Disney, and they were trying to build a castle, and somebody went, "We better build this a bit bigger. They've actually got castles here." And I just loved that. We better put a bit more effort into this, guys. They've got some. Okay, so I'm still trying to get my head around this story, right? So we've got, I mean, this is still one of the most famous cases. Is it basically famous because there were 5 witnesses? And that's quite rare.
I think so. It's just not one guy stumbling out of the woods,
Yeah, and I mean, because in most UFO cases, let's be honest, or particularly older ones, it's either the person it's happened to, Betty and Barney Hill. There weren't any other real witnesses. I don't think there are any other witnesses, are they? Except Betty and Barney, because they were on the road in the middle of nowhere. There was some physical evidence. So this doesn't have any physical evidence really other than a red mark on his arm. It's got 5 witnesses. Witnesses that don't necessarily like each other. Witnesses that haven't tried to cash in on it since.
Well, as far as I'm aware, when he obviously, like I said, he phoned his sister from a call box. He was retrieved. He was not emaciated, but you could tell he hadn't eaten. He was unshaven. He was, you could go out roughing it and do that. I suppose you could impose them upon yourself by limiting your calorie intake over a few days, but just having enough sustenance to survive. If that was the way that you wanted to go. I mean, if you're thinking, I'm going to go disappearing for a few days and I need to make sure that I look like I've been missing for a few days, you're not going to sit there eating pizzas 24/7. You're going to be aware that you need to drop your calorie intake on. But he did look.
That's thinking it through, though. That's really thinking it through.
Well, they did have a few weeks to think it through because, like I say, the idea could have been formulated from the NBC special, which was just 2 weeks in advance. Mike Rogers knew that he'd already asked for an extension from the Forestry Commission, and the Forestry Commission had added that $1 per acre that fell under the dateline, or rather the deadline of the Forestry Commission's extension, that he'd be in arrears, plus the money that there was withholding. So, I don't know.
I'm amazed they got away with it. So what we're basically saying here is, if I can break it down really simply, we've got no physical evidence. We've got a guy who ran it who had been done for fraud and had other criminal things. They had a fine hanging over them that would have cost them. I imagine they're not wealthy people that they maybe couldn't afford if they ran over this contract, if they didn't fulfill the contract.
He was making something like $25 an acre. He was being fined $1 an acre for every acre that was not deforested beyond the extension. Plus
per day, right? Wasn't that per day?
Yeah. Plus the workers that he had to pay. He had to pay their wages. They weren't doing it for free. So that was coming out of the 25. It might have been a little bit more. I'm sure you can find it on the internet, guys, if you want to check. But it's there about $25, something like that. So he's losing money all the time, and the Forestry Commission are withholding a big chunk of the money until completion of the contract.
So, I mean, so that gives him motive. I'm thinking about motive, means, and opportunity. So they had the information. They had the Betty and Barney Hill story. He's a huge UFO nut, so he actually believes this stuff. I always think when these people are found out to be frauds, particularly a lot of UFO, supernatural, ghost belief, they believe the lie. And if you believe a lie, it's really easy to talk yourself into it.
To continue and propagate the lie.
I think in the back of their head somewhere they go, well, this didn't really happen, but it could. It should, it could have happened. So why not just,
I mean, psychologically speaking, people, due to the human condition, to help, when you suffer trauma, there's the difference between academic memory and emotional memory. So when something happens and somebody has an emotional memory, the thing is the amygdala is responsible for the processing of the actual facts that are going in at that time. So at the later day, what people will do is they will, as they tell the story, it's the human condition or natural to slightly embellish every time they say it to help solidify the story over time, because the academic memory wasn't responsible for storing the information when it happened. It was the emotional memory because of the fight or flight kicking in, which is a natural response for a human being. So it's completely natural for stories to slightly become embellished when they're completely truthful. Whenever they're completely factual and they don't change throughout the course of their being told, they're completely the same all the time. They're almost memorized, practiced, studied.
I don't think there was only one Fire in the Sky movie, wasn't there? But this is a story and a formula to it that's been repeated a lot in like X-Files. And there's a scene from X-Files that's almost identical to this in the first series. Isn't it even in the opening credits with the character being hit by light and being sort of pulled up by his chest sort of thing?
I believe you're right, yeah.
The thing that I find interesting is that there was, I think, a fire in the area, a woodland fire, like early 2000s, I think. And before the fire, somebody went out and got tree ring samples, and the tree ring sample showed that around the time that he, counting back the rings, the trees in that area experienced higher growth, faster growth than the tree rings of the surrounding forest.
Yeah.
Also, the soil samples kind of in the middle of this ring of trees had a lot of higher iron content than other sample soils from the mountainside. And that's interesting. Was it evidence of ball lightning, maybe, or something else? I mean, I'm just trying, from a scientific point of view, trying to narrate other things that could have happened. Is the hematite and the magnetite?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Yeah.
So we're arguing that something around this time happened. Could have been something these guys witnessed, though. I mean, if ball lightning is incredibly rare. There was no way they could have known that was going to happen. But maybe they saw a meteorite. Maybe they saw, particularly in the pitch black. I mean, if you go somewhere that's dark enough and look up, you will see constant streaks and Could something have happened that they saw that they maybe inspire them and think, you know what? Actually, if we say there was a UFO incident now, some idiot will say they saw lights in the sky, and they will back us up. I don't know.
No, I think it's just as plausible as anything else. I mean, that's what I was almost alluding to just a little bit earlier myself. That if fishermen and hunters saw a golden glow in the sky and they all witnessed the same thing, it's a little bit easier to elaborate upon something that other people may have seen as well, to gain corroborative reassurance within the community that what happened truly did, and build upon that. But to just throw a spanner in the works, Travis Walton also, when he's been interviewed, has also made other statements that have got, that other events have happened to him when he was a child. He woke up in the middle of the night, and due to the heat, because at that time of year they was all sleeping inside a corridor, his family, and he woke up because he saw a small man that was at the foot of his bed and was lifting up the bedclothes, which sort of like made him like jump up. And then this small ball, that he pretty much describes it like the small creatures that are on board the craft, if you like. He saw this small man dressed in dark clothes, big eyes, big head, hairless, and then he disappeared. He also reported that when he, oh yeah, Stormy baby. He also reported that when he was older, when he was older, and this is after the event, he woke up for no reason and he was running. He was running out of his bedroom, and he's woke up running, and he's ran straight into his child's bedroom, and he's noticed that his son is choking himself on the rail of the cot of the crib, and he managed to that enabled him to save his son's life, as if some kind of extraterrestrial spirit guide is watching over him, you know. So these things have come out. Now, in many cases of abductions are where you will get generational abductees. Yeah. And C.D. Bryan, and well, there's others, but C.D. Bryan's done a lot of work and wrote a lot of books about this kind of thing. And Bud Hopkins especially. And multiple generations of people will be abducted, or if people do get abducted, they won't just be abducted once. There's lots of, and when I say evidence, I use the term loosely, evidence, but there's lots of reports of people abducted as abducted as children, as teens, as grown-ups, and then their children get abducted too. And that type of, you know, as that was given more exposure because of people like Bud Hopkins in the you know, the 80s and into the early 90s, Travis's story started to change, to adapt, to fit that narrative as well, as if that would reinforce his believability of being abducted, because it's like, well, of course I'm a true abductee because I've had it when I was young and I've had it after the event, just like all other abductees do. A little bit convenient for my liking.
Did excuse me, when the story was retracted by Mike,
did
he replace it with something else, or he just says no, that didn't happen and walks off?
Yeah, he pretty much did. And I think somebody, I forget the name, and you'll have to forgive me for this. I really should have got the name, but he did get interviewed by somebody else later on, and he said no. He sort of like reinforced his statement again, saying it was true. So it's like, yes, this is what happened. No, that's not what happened. To don't talk to me. I'm not interested in what happened. To no, that is what happened. Again, you know, so it's run the gamut, really.
How many days was Travis missing?
5 days, 6 hours, I believe.
5 days, 6. So he just playing devil's advocate. Did anybody else come up to say they saw him in those 5 days?
No.
No one admitted, like, came forward saying, well, I fed the guy.
No.
Or, you know, I caught him in my dog kennel eating the dog food, or, you know, I mean, so the other question is, and, you know, we have evidence of tree rings and then all the scandals, but where the hell was somebody? I mean, you know, that's, you know, it's high altitude. It's I mean, maybe the native Apaches took him in. I don't know. It's just, or they would have probably have shot him.
Yeah.
But, so what happened? I mean, okay, so let's rule out he wasn't in a UFO. Well, where the hell was he? And Lord knows there's a big enough bounty hunt, you know, thinking he was murdered. You know, I think it was, wasn't it up to the state level, state investigators, and not, or did it ever rise to federal investigation?
Oh, yeah, the FBI were involved.
Was it the FBI? Well, somebody would have, you know, I would think somebody said, well, yeah, I saw that sorry son of a bitch over here, you know.
Well, let's consider it
true. A beehive or something. Yeah.
Let's consider it as true for a second, though, because Sophie's making a good point. Is it a frequent abduction spot? I don't think specifically it is, but it's in an area that's not far from New Mexico. It's not that far from White Sands, is it? I don't think.
Yeah, well,
Arizona. Can I speak to the issue of the abduction spot?
Well, I was also thinking about the UFO corridor. Isn't that right smack bang in the middle of the UFO corridor?
Or through the center of Arizona.
So, yeah, basically, UFO hotspot.
in a way, Arizona, and like I said, Arizona, New Mexico, places like Colorado, more for cattle mutilations and things like that. But it is sort of like in that area. A biggest chunk of actual abductions actually occur in Europe and not in the US, though, were they?
And if I could just speak to the issue of the multiple abductions or whatever, the mountain that they were on, this is going back to the Native American lore, the mountain they were on is considered sacred to the Apache for vision quests in the spirit people. So there's a lot of crap in the West that, that's kind of spooky that, we just, from Western civilization come around and see it, and it's like, well, no, this has been going on for quite some time. I mean, you guys have seen my petroglyph videos, and they are some crazy ones out here.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, it's like you look at them and say, well, maybe that's abstract art, or maybe that's, something else. Maybe that's an abduction. Maybe that's, maybe that's a star map or something. Now, if all these petroglyphs are indeed just abstract art, there's a valley here in California that's got to be the biggest abstract art gallery in the world, 600 square miles of it. And so, don't discount, Native American lore, how these events may have been handed down in form of stories that, at best that they could know, 500 years ago, best they could tell, because rocket science is a relatively new thing. That rocket science was not a thing when, in pre-Columbian times. So, I mean, there's that also going for it in terms of explanation, I guess.
I think. Sorry, Jay Bonesteak. Yeah. I think when you're in a situation where the family of Travis, when they are actually involved, boots on the ground with the search for him, aren't bothered about searching for him. The investigators at the time, the police at the time, were massively concerned about the lack of interest that the family were showing in worrying about his concern, like, he'll be fine, which to them sort of suggested that there was something arranged. How did they know he was going to be okay? How did they know he was going to come back and he was going to be fine? How? That means either A, they completely believed out and out that he had been taken by a UFO, and they also then had to completely believe the UFO would return him completely safely, or they had to have agreed with the fact, well, yeah, they murdered him, but it's okay. There isn't really anything else outside them parameters they could have gone with. Yeah, it's like, well, he's gone missing. It's like, well, who gives a who cares? And they really, I can't remember the statement from his mum, but it was something along the lines of, I don't see the point in carrying on this any further. No mother would do that. That's not natural. And if she didn't care about him, and that's, and it's a case of, well, why would she be involved in the search in the first place then? So obviously she did care, or had to portray that she cared, to want to go out and be boots on the ground searching, as a mother would. But when questioned about it, she wants to call it off just a couple of hours in. Like, forget it. It's pointless looking.
If it's BS, I think that makes sense, because if I was in, we were in, because you talked into this lie. So, okay, well, Mom, we're going to do this because we want to get out of this contract, and this is going to happen. So I'm just going to hide out in the woods for a few days, and then we're going to say it's aliens. And she'll be like, no one's going to believe that. But then when actually tens or even hundreds of people start searching and spending all this money, because you might just stood there while like the search teams go just like looking around thinking, when we get caught, we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah,
guys, don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can completely appreciate why she was doing that, because she must have been thinking this is getting out of hand.
And that's what concerned investigators at the time, Jay. The fact that the family didn't seem to care.
Yeah. So, I mean, the movie was a dramatization. I think that's fair to say, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even Travis Walton, since I think Dave, you said earlier, has said, look, it wasn't that violent, or it wasn't that.
It's not. He didn't have a weird kind of sheet of this weird stuff that was stretched over the top of him that prevented him from breathing. He didn't wake up in a cocoon kind of thing with hundreds of other human beings that were being stored or anything like that. You know, he woke up, he was on a table, he was being watched by 3 beings, he freaked out, he had a little bit of a scuffle with one, a humanoid come towards him, took him somewhere else, exactly, a little bit of the old Queensbury, a humanoid type one took him somewhere else, they strapped him to a table, stuck a mask on him, lights out, and he remembers waking up. That's the broad outline of it, really.
He got lost in a frat party. That's what that sounds like. Yeah, they threw a mask on me, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Toga.
And I lost my toga.
We're coming up to the end of the show, as we always do. So let's wrap it up then. So you're going to have to, gun against the head. Is the Fire in the Sky movie a nice bit of sci-fi that is not based on anything that actually happened, or is it based on a true story, as it claims?
Well, I think it's a fun movie that was based on someone's story that the veracity of is still kind of up in the air.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Dave,
I think it's a massively fictionalized movie on the back of somebody's story, and I think the story is a hoax. So, in my opinion, it's all a movie. It is all sci-fi, if you like.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced.
I think I actually think I do enjoy remembering the movie, but I've seen other films that like pretend to do it's for me it's a bit like Blair Witch. You know, it's a film that's pretending to be real, and that's why it's more a little bit scary sort of things. It's like, oh, well, you know, and it's that sort of thing, and it was very well made. You know, we talk about some of the actors who were in it. There's good actors in this film. It got critical acclaim at the time because they said it really focused on Travis Walton's the impact emotionally of what he went through. But I don't. I did see Travis Walton on Joe Rogan a bit. He didn't go great into the story, but I didn't watch it all, to be fair. But I didn't believe a word he was saying.
No.
In '93, all my friends went to go see the movie and loved the movie.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's a good film. It's a good movie.
I've got to ask, though, how did the story not get dismissed as nonsense almost straight away? How do we know that? I mean, I know that Travis Walton. I'm embarrassed as a UFO guy not to know this story properly. I think I don't know it because I think when I watched the film, I just immediately thought, well, this isn't true. So I never bothered looking into it a great deal. It's the only thing I can think of. I've never researched it.
Yeah, you asked me this question earlier, like, how do we know? And one way or the other. And why has it stuck around? Why did it get a movie? You know, if you take the other guys out of it, you know, Lost Lumberjack gets zapped by UFO, reappears in town 5 days later. I wouldn't have gotten past the second paragraph. Like, oh, okay, right, you know.
Proper UFO geeks probably know about it.
Yeah, I mean, it gets so complicated, and other people involved, and no one found the guy, and you know, they did report it, you know, right off the bat. It wasn't like he'd, you know, been missing for days and then someone said something about it. And it's just like, well, where the hell was he? I think that's a valid question. You know, who was hiding him? Who was feeding him? He had to have at least water, you know. And okay, M Family has a very good point here. We should put that up on screen.
Sounds like Monty Python.
Right.
I am a lumberjack, and I'm okay.
Right.
I do work all night, though, and I do work all day.
I will say this, though. Sorry, Stormy. It's just because you have raised a good point there about where was it. But there are cabins out there, and they do have supplies out there in case they get caught. Now, it was already getting near to winter because it was November.
Oh, that area's cold in November.
It was already, yeah. So the days were drawing, the nights were drawing in, the days were becoming shorter. They were, you know, as far as I'm aware, there are cabins out there. If it comes to it,
hunters' cabins, things.
Yeah. So, but in saying that, and again playing devil's advocate towards myself, would they not have been searched during the search for Travis?
especially if they suspected he was just hiding out.
I mean, according to the FBI, I mean, they had all sorts of people out looking for him. The sheriff's department, I think even the Apache reservation, they were looking for the guy because they wanted the federales off their land. Let's find this white man and get him out of here.
Yeah.
You know, right? Yeah, and we don't want him traipsing all over our sacred mountain. But it's just, I think the reason the story has stuck around and why, is just because it's not. There's lots of evidence about it that can make it easily dismissed. There's lots of squirrely behavior and all the other stuff. But then again, it's just there's so many things that's popped up about the story that kind of keeps it alive. Well, like one guy, discredits it, then he recredits it, but the rest of them say, well, no, that shit really happened or something like that. And then there's differences between his book and the movie. And even the producer said, well, no, this is too much like something that's already been on TV. We have to sensationalize it. So let's get some screenwriters to do the sensational.
It's a dramatization, isn't it?
Yeah.
Most true stories are dramatizations. Because if they were really strict to think, it would be boring, and a movie is still entertainment. Otherwise, they'd have just done a documentary.
Yeah,
if you all you've got to do is, and this happened 10 years after, I believe. I think it was 10 years after Whitley Strieber, when Whitley Strieber was abducted, and watched the film Communion in relation to the book. So what Whitley reported to have happened, what he's wrote about his experience to the actual film. Was it Christopher Walken who played him? Actually, I think maybe there's nobody seen it. I may have me on with this one. But if you watch the film Communion compared with what Whitley Strieber reported, you'll see it's much of a muchness. It's an elaboration upon a reported event. Yeah.
So just to answer the first question, because I did allude to this earlier, do you think then if it's always possible this is true? We look at with our cynical minds and what happened, it is possible. He elaborated on it. We cannot say he's a 100% full of shit. We just can't, unfortunately, because we weren't there.
No.
But is it? What do you think is more likely then, that he somehow rigged something to convince these other 5 people that something had happened? So, because that would be the best way of spinning alive. That's what he wants to do. Or do you think all of these guys were in on this and it's just a hoax?
I don't think Travis is smart enough to rig anything. I know that's harsh and that's cruel, but I don't think he's smart enough to rig cables and just. I just don't.
It's up there, isn't it? I agree with that. I agree with that. No, I think it's just an out and out lie. And
he drops him off, buggered off home, and went aliens.
A vocalized lie. It's verbatim, and while they haven't denied it, they haven't talked about it. In any of the experiences I've had, I mean, my first one will be 1980s, well, when I was a kid, but my first one that I remember that is cemented in my brain will be 1987. But, I'm not bothered about talking about it. I will talk about it. I will discuss it. I don't need to deny it. So if it happened, why would they go, yeah, it happened, that's it. And never speak about it again, or not be interested in ever talking about it. If something happened, you'd be like, yeah, God damn right it happened, yeah, and I'll tell you how, and this is what happened, and we were here, and it felt like this, and I couldn't believe it. I was shitting my pants. He totally disappeared, man. I was freaked out. No, there's none of that. It's like, no. Just
not for all 5 of them. I wouldn't mind if like 1 or 2 did, because not everybody wants to talk to reporters or wants to be mocked.
But all of them.
But all of them is suspicious.
And Mike Rogers felt compelled to talk because he was the leader of the team and they were all his responsibility. They worked for him.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, M Family in chat brings up an interesting question. What in the book or in the movie did he meet another human on board?
A human type alien, yeah. He picked up like a glass beaker from behind him that was on a shelf. That was when he was in the first room when he first woke up. There you go. For glass beakers, see Jamie from Sidetrack. And of course,
available in all good stock.
I was Stormy from Sidetrack as well. They're Sidetrack fans. But yeah, he picked up a glass tumbler, a glass beaker, and started to wave it around like a weapon. M people or M family, I beg your pardon. There are the people inside ourselves. He started waving it around like a weapon at this original creature, who then backed off. There were 3 of them in the room with him, and it was a humanoid type, a more human entity that came towards him to calm him down. That was wearing a fishbowl helmet. Took him into another room where there were 3. One of them a female, and it was the female human-looking humanoid, more human-looking humanoid, if you like, that calmed him down on the table. He had a mask put on his face, and then he were out. That's all that happened. Everything else, that's pretty much portrayed. See some of the comments there. A lot of what else is portrayed in the film is artistic license on top of artistic license, I think.
There you go, then. So I think that's. I mean, like I say, this is only our opinion. We don't know for sure because it is based on it. There are interesting parts of this story, which is, I think, why, like we've said, it stuck around and why it got a movie. But for me, yeah, good film. I watch it every few years if I ever catch it on, but it's not based on a true story for me. So there are other far more interesting stories out there that were less sensationalized. It's the 5 witnesses, isn't it, that basically got it?
Absolutely. And when you get abducted by aliens, they don't take you aboard a nice little sauce. You get taken aboard a battle cruiser and they kill you. They don't let you go, people. There you die.
I tried to get some videos that we could put little clips, and I Googled anal probing, thinking I would. Yes. It went badly wrong. If my wife sees my search history, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, that's the thing about all this anal probing. Is that because the Zeta reptilians or something? Or is that where the
Zeta reptilians? Yeah,
they seem to be massively like predisposed towards human beings' arseholes, which is never fully understood.
It's because they all know we talk shit. They took that literally and thought, well, this is where they talk out of. No, there's interesting thing. Yeah. Google, be safe.
Absolutely agree with that comment. Yeah,
I need to change my settings.
You need to
viruses.
They're done for now.
Alert! Yeah. All right. Well, that's it then, guys. I think we've covered that one. It's the biggest story that we've had. I've been talking aliens and stuff on this channel, on the Machine channel, for about 3 years, and we've never covered this. So there we go. One more down. Just scratch that off the list. Thank you very much.
Have you ever done a video on a UFO cult?
No, but we should, and we should make one. I want a cult that comes to do my housework for me.
Yes.
And I want to be the religious leader. 20 years ago, I'd have said if I could also then get a bunch of virgins, but now I'm married, I'm not allowed to do that sort of thing anymore. But if they could do my housework for me, that would be great.
After this off camera, I'll tell you a story and see if you want to go for it or not.
Did we not? Have we done a Waco thing in the past, Jay? Did we do a Waco thing? I know that's not a UFO cult, but it's a religious cult. I'm sure
I did the Kool-Aid. We did a video on the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, the Jim Jones thing.
Yeah, Jim Jones. We did that. And that was kind of a UFO cult. Well, it was a UFO cult. They believed it. He was just a madman. But was that still the largest murder case in history? If you don't know, it's a murder-suicide, but was it 800 or something ridiculous?
Yeah, something like that.
But no, I don't think we have. So we'll have to do a UFO cult. And then, like I said, if anybody wants to come and join the Sci-Trek cult, all you have to do is come and do housework. It's really, and pray to me as your new God. Yeah.
You will do as you are told. You will join Sci-Trek.
you will buy crap off the Sci-Trek channel, sci-trek.com. And yeah, you will buy my crap and just do everything I say. And but nobody wants to join. That's why
I wonder why.
That's why I had children. I get 15 or so years where they have to do as they're told.
Yes.
Need a cult. Always wanted a cult of my own. Anyway, guys, so it has been lovely as always. We'll be back next week. Chaps, if you want to get in the comments after the video, if there's anything you want us to talk about in future videos, if you're from Sci-Trek, please go over to the Machine and subscribe there. Go over to SciWorks and Darius Lives 2 and subscribe there too.
Thank you.
if you haven't wandered over to the Twitch account, I don't know why I'm on Twitch. My son told me to. I don't know what it's for. It seems to be a lot of people playing computer games and other people watching it, which I don't understand. But my son said, I've got to go on Twitch. So we're on Twitch too. And all our live streams will be on there. So do all that business, like, share the video, blah, 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 blah. Have a lovely rest of your Sunday. We will see you next week about the same time, same bat time channel.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Say bye-bye, Stormy. Say bye-bye, Dave. One more question, sorry, before we go. How was all this connected to the Waltons?
No, no.
Not even a bit?
No.
That's a bit disappointing, isn't it?
I spent all day watching the Waltons.
That was the wrong show prep.
God damn it.
Now, if you want to talk about grandma's peanut apple butter,
I will say though that
and Appalachian living, well,
your version of the Waltons that you were watching is probably more believable.
Yeah, well, I googled anal probing Waltons. Bad. Good night, guys.